Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Um, a rainy day in Lagos, but hey, geography is what it is. When you say in Lagos, Lagos is quite a bit. It's a bit wide, so wouldn't be surprised if some people were saying, "What's he talking about?" But I suppose most people in Lagos will say, "Yeah, we hear you." Anyway, it's good to have you. Um, the power situation in our country. We've been served notice. You must have seen all the reports. The Minister of Power has said that it will now be next month. It would have been earlier, but from next month, Nigerian consumers can expect to pay more, perhaps much more, perhaps double. I don't know. The details are yet to be told us. For electricity, the way one paper phrased it, I think it was yesterday or so, it was prepare to pay more for darkness. Of course, that is, taking the mickey of the epileptic power supply situation that we have in the country. And I don't see, it's doubtful, really, but I hope I am wrong. It's doubtful if paying more is going to change anything. That is to say, when the time comes and we pay more, there will actually be a change in the supply pattern. Well, the parameters are quite numerous. The other day we were talking about the president getting involved in an initiative that involves Siemens, and that was very, very well received. But here we are. So next month, which is just around the corner anyway, about we are 2/3 of the way through almost. Next month we shall be paying more. It shall cost more per unit. So this borders on those matters that we've been hearing. Well, subsidy, supply, and all of that. Well, we have experts. We have our friend, Chief Sunday Oduton, spokesperson and executive director, Research and Advocacy Association of the Nigerian Electricity Distributors, that's ANED. Good morning, Chief Oduton, and thank you very much for coming on. We also have today Mr. Bala Zaka. Mr. Bala Zaka is an engineer and an energy consultant. Indeed, good morning to you too, Mr. Zaka. Saying we have Mr. Zaka on. Mr. Bala Zaka is one of our contributors today. Good morning to you, sir. So the news, I wish I could say cheering news, but from the point of view of Nigerian consumers, it's not cheering news. And I imagine it also is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, government wouldn't have imposed this measure, which many are going to see as a hardship. There are a lot of parameters, so I leave that to you, sir. Give me your impression. Did you expect this? Because people thought things were getting better.
I wasn't expecting this. When I heard about it, I was surprised, if not shocked, but I kept asking myself questions and I couldn't really figure out the answers. There are times when you can ask yourself questions and come up with the likely answers. But in this case, I kept asking myself questions and I couldn't come out with the answers. And I noticed that because as a Nigerian, as a loyal citizen, as somebody who grew up as a child, right from the days of ECN, Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, to the days of NEPA, National Electricity Power Corporation, who never expect
Authority.
power always. Yeah, exactly. All this, all these acronyms that were interesting. We were having fun, but some of us have reached this stage where we feel we can now take advantage of that power that we used to enjoy as kids, as students, but now also as people who want to contribute to the aggregate economy. In other words, probably as manufacturers, as business owners, and as consultants. And we found out that the power is not there. And then the question people like me now start asking is this: if Nigeria is probably about almost 60 years old now, and if there was a time when we had good electricity, good education, good health care, good rail system, what really has changed that got us to this level of total decay, if not total decay. What really has happened, apart from our population increasing, which is expected with every other country, in the case of Nigeria, does it mean apart from the increasing population, then approaches to governance, approaches to morality have also decayed? What exactly has happened? And believe you, sir,
yes, sir,
I can't come up with the answers.
Well, we will soon have Chief Sunday Oduton, who is a spokesperson for the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, and I think he will have some answers. But in the meantime, I wouldn't be surprised if it were not determined that we're suffering from gross inefficiency in that sector, because the numbers just don't add up, is what I am hearing from informed people. The numbers simply do not add up, and so there's no way to do this, that is to say supply electricity profitably, is part of the answer, although it will require an expert to really get into it for us. One is hearing of things like the inefficiencies I was talking about. How many households actually have electricity routed to it in Nigeria? That's one figure. How many of them are paying customers? That's another figure. How much are we generating? How much of that is being able to be distributed? So when you look at it, it just is an impossible mess, which I expect Chief Sunday Oduton to address, because he's smack in the middle of it. And especially when you compare with, take for example, the telephony sector, the communications, the GSM sector. They have a much better deal, and the point is made that, and those are wireless networks. In the case of electricity, they have to be wired networks. So as you can get from my rambling, I get some sense of this is just not working, and because it is not working, it's very hard to find investors, and so the decay that you spoke about, it's like we got it. We're stuck with it.
We are not supposed to be stuck with it. And this is the way I will explain it. Sir, every country you go, if you call yourself a geographical entity called a country or a nation, if you call yourself an independent country or an independent nation, there are basic things that must be in place. One of those basic things that you require is power or energy, because you require power or energy to drive the entire economy, apart from health, apart from education, apart from security, which one way or the other also rely on power. When you talk about power or energy to drive an economy, then you are talking about strategic domestic sector, strategic industrial sector, then strategic commercial sector. If a country that is supposed to stand on the tripod of these three sectors does not have them working due to lack of power, that country will grind to a halt, whether in terms of its politics, whether in terms of its industrialization, in all aspects. And that is why we are saying, if you don't have power, virtually everything about life will come to a halt. And unfortunately for Nigerians, we are so confused today that we don't know if that sector is a deregulated sector, whether it is a privatized sector, whether it is a liberalized sector or a commercialized sector. As I speak to you today, sir, I am confused. But what we are trying to say is this: sometimes you can come out and clearly say this sector is deregulated, and you have your reasons. Then allow it to continue as a deregulated sector. If you want to have a sector as a privatized sector, let it be understood. Then all the concept of privatization will be applied. So is it with liberalization and commercialization. But in a situation where everybody knows that without power, you cannot have light, you cannot have medical services going on, you cannot even have teaching things going on, everything will ground to a halt, and we will still be talking about why it is not moving forward. It's definitely confusing, but we need to ask ourselves, In those days when we had all this, when we had the power, does it mean the leaders then were more educated than the leaders we have today? Does it mean they were more focused? Does it mean they were more pan-Nigerian than today? What exactly is the confusing thing? And that's why I said we have more questions than answers. Exactly. But honestly, it's time we start providing answers.
You know, and I think there are those who have the answers out there. I mean, apart from Chief Sunday Oduto that we are waiting for. In fact, in the meantime, we'll probably open the phones so that just as we're trying to get Chief Oduto on the phone. But some of the things that I have read, Mr. Zaka, talk about, look, all the things that you spoke about just now, indeed, most Nigerians, you know, of a certain age will appreciate those times when power was running properly. Actually, I'm being confused in my ear here. Okay, we'll understand those things. But apparently there's been neglect. There's been neglect. There was a time when government MDAs just didn't think it was the done thing to pay for power. People were using power free. We now have a situation, as I said at the top, the experts are saying, where the few people that are indeed metered actually are carrying the tab for all sorts of losses, all sorts of people that are not metered. The result is that it's an impossible sum. And this is where well, the weather being what it is part of the challenge of today that I spoke about at the top. This is supposed to be part of the challenge that it just isn't adding up. You can't get investors to come in simply because it's known investors are not in the business of throwing money down the drain. We're told all sorts of figures. In fact, Chief Oduto has come on now. So, Chief Oduto, fine. Good morning, sir. Hopefully, you can rescue me from
Good morning.
You can rescue me from this situation. Why are we, you know, having this subject, this issue of an increase in power? Some are saying it's going to almost double. Why is it when, and this is immediately after the recent hope that we had that, oh, Mr. President has come in personally, and Mr. Vice President is also being involved. We've spoken with the government of Germany. There's this whole Siemens thing. We're gonna be where we should be, and then they now hit us with, you know, an increase in tariffs from tomorrow. I mean, from next month. Could you give us some sort of understanding, explanation?
Thank you very much, Uncle Yori. First of all, let me thank my brother Bala. Well done. And I want us to understand that the problem with Nigerian power sector is just the same as the problem with Nigeria. Number one is that we fail to plan, and as a result of that, we plan to fail. Talking about increase in tariff, the question that should be asked is that, are we where we are supposed to be? If the answer is yes, then there shouldn't be any increase in tariff. What we are saying is that we don't even know what we are doing yet until we do the right thing. What do I mean by that? Number one, the issue of pricing of any product has to do with the cost of production and the landing cost. You have to get that right. And like my brother Bala said earlier on, in a country where you fail to plan with your growing population, what will happen is that you get to a point where you cannot even serve that population. So Nigerian population today is not less than 200 million people. And what are we generating? Less than 5,000 megawatts. When I talk about generation, what goes into this, what goes into our homes, I'm not talking about what somebody can do or what somebody cannot do. But let me commend the president who has been trying now to get something right. And a good example is that a country where even states cannot even, state governors who cannot even perform in their own state, where we have banditry, they are killing their people, the same set of state governors are trying to grab the discourse like a pie they want to share. I want to be part of it.
Yeah, but the president has shut that down. The president has shut that down, right?
The president has done well by shutting it down. I gave that example for you to know that we're in a very funny country. People that should be looking after the problem, insecurity in their state, they are busy to see what they can shop again. Now, let's leave that.
Well, I don't know if that was the way the governors looked at it. They probably were thinking of maybe efficiencies, better efficiencies.
Uncle Yori, are the governors efficient in their states? I know more than you do on this one, sir. But let's leave that. The other thing is that we need to understand that the way the whole thing is configured, and I want to also thank the Minister for Power. He has come up to say something good at the last Senate hearing a few days ago, which is that we need to align the value chain of this sector, which means that if you generate 10,000 megawatts, you must be able to transmit 10,000 megawatts, you must be able to distribute 10,000 megawatts. That is not rocket science. That is something that we can do, we ought to have done, and we should do. So if we get that right, a lot of other things will be right. Then a situation whereby politics is being placed in some corners, some people trying to see, and we are demonizing the investors, these innocent Nigerians who choose to put their money in this dilapidated infrastructure, who choose to go and sign contracts with the federal government, thinking that the government will live up to the contract they sign. And this is a government, not this government, from Mr. Jonathan time till today, government that will not respect the sanctity of contract. How then do you think investors will come? There's no magic. We need to go back to basic. We need to research. We need to realign. We need to do what is right for Nigeria. We need to do things away from politics. We need to stop all this demoralizing a set of people, forgetting that there's a value chain. None of us can do it alone. The DISCOs cannot distribute anything that has not been transmitted to them. The GENCOs need to pay the gas suppliers unless and until we have that payment assurance, proper alignment, and of course the Nigerian people, unless and until they begin to know that they need to pay for electricity. Let me give you a quick
sorry, sir. Chief Oduton,
yes.
Chief Oduton, before you go forward, yes, I wanted to get your understanding on things are bad in terms of, from the point of view of the ordinary consumer. The ordinary consumer in this country, things are quite poor. Now we're being told to prepare to pay more. Before you had come on, I was theorizing that this is all probably going to be that those who can be metered are going to be paid for a lot of people who are not metered, and a lot of the inefficiencies are going to be paid by the poor guy who happens to have a meter. What do you think of that sort of reasoning on one's part?
Thank you very much, sir. Let me start by saying that the problem of metering in Nigeria is caused by the federal government and, of course, the regulator, which is...
Carry on, please. Okay, it's frozen from now. It's frozen for now. Well, Mr. Zaka, are you still there?
Hello, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Okay, Chief Oduton is back. Yes.
Now, the problem of metering in Nigeria was and is caused by the federal government of Nigeria and the regulator. And this is what I mean. All of a sudden, what they did was that they decided, the former Minister for Power just woke up one day and said, metering is not the primary responsibility of the DISCOs. So they took metering away from the DISCOs and they gave it to private investor, private companies called MAP, Meter.
Okay, no doubt you're going to be talking about another efficiency there. Well, Mr. Zaka, the man has come in and he has weighed in on the matter, and well, there are a lot of insinuations and innuendos in what he's saying, especially I think he was also talking about the scapegoating. Now, we know, as I was saying, that there are inefficiencies in there. We might not be able to explain them in the absence of a person who is actually a player in the sector, which he has helped us with. But the problem is, I suppose the National Assembly has to get in on this act. Can they really do this? Is there an alternative? I've heard that there are just two alternatives. It's either you increase the price for the people that you can get hold of, that is the people who are metered, and or subsidy. In the long run, I'm hearing that government has sort of decided via this particular instruction notification now that we're going to do both. You know, part of this and part of that. That is part of subsidy and part of increasing the tariff price.
Well, sir, this is the way I will approach this your statement to what you said about increase tariff and provide subsidy. It's just like saying injure somebody and provide him with the drugs and treatment. So why injure the person? Why injure the person in the first place? You have the drugs. Why not use the drugs for something else? Why not use that thing that you will use the drug you will use to get the drugs or buy the drugs to do something else? Why create the wound, then start running again on your own intentionally to do that? Honestly, sir, you see, whether we accept it or not.
But to continue your analogy, to continue your analogy, sir, this wound is not coming from not even the administration before this. This goes back to inefficiencies they would have us believe, going back to the military when there was complete neglect of the sector. But now somebody is saying that, look, we're ready to do something about it. We have a bigger problem. That's the sort of simplistic understanding that one has.
Okay, if you say the military, as far as I'm concerned, practically the military left you 2 decades ago. 20 years ago, the quantity of gray hair I had wasn't this much. I was a young guy in my 30s. During the days of the military, at least the airlines were working. During the days of the military, reasonably, Nigerian universities were recognized. During the days of the military, to a reasonable extent, refineries were created. The military left you 20 years ago. From now, you've not been able to construct an additional refinery. So, Yori, it is only in Nigeria that I have discovered that instead of population and diversity to be equipment for unity and strength, they are looking as if they are a disadvantage. It's only in Nigeria. It is only in Nigeria that I discovered that instead of us to take advantage of our population, our crude oil, our number of universities to become the continental hub for Africa, the reverse is the case, where our crude oil is being described as a curse, where our highly educated people now go out to other places. But you and I knew that. I heard that there was a time we were even exporting judges to places like Gambia.
Yeah.
But let me just come back to a subject of discussion, sir.
Yes.
It's very simple. For any country to grow, when you talk about GDP, you're talking about gross domestic products. You're talking about the totality of goods and services that you produce in a given year within a given country. And that simply means there must be manufacturing and there must be processing. I'm not talking about people who will act as middlemen. When you talk about manufacturing, yes, middlemen, yeah. Thank you for the correction. When you talk about processing and manufacturing, there is what we call cost and unit cost. That simply means you will come up with a unit cost of a material. And based on the unit cost of a material, by the time you now go into production or processing, you will be able to come up with unit cost that you will sell and now see what we call profit margin. At the rate we are going, sir, our factories will not be able to produce.
Let me take this analogy, Mr. Zaka. Let me take this analogy over to Chief. Now, Chief Oduto, I like where Mr. Bala was going because I want to bring it on here. Now, the ad hoc committee that was set up, that was headed up by Governor El Rufai, no doubt it was to, one, get into the structure of ownership, of discos and sort of understand. In fact, there's a whole matter of the forensic audit that was ordered, and as a matter of fact, and as an aside, you people went to court to stop the forensic audit. But I wanted to go back to the whole matter of trying to understand what exactly is going on in that sector. Was the job of the El Rufai-led ad hoc committee. Now, among the things, the president didn't throw the recommendations out, or he didn't throw everything out, but he did say, no, it's not going to work for the states to take over the discos. But there are other things in there, like allowing NERC to properly regulate the sector. Your comments, sir?
Thank you very much. The NERC, NAC, has always been the regulator. Whether they have failed to regulate properly or not is another matter. Let me give you a good example. The same regulator rolled out an order recently saying that discos must meter all Nigerians by the end of 2021. In Abeokuta, where I hail from, we call it Alawa Dababa Salah. When you roll out a regulation that is not only inconsistent with reality, but that is impossible to do, that is unrealistic, because this disco you are saying must meter, they are no more in charge of metering. That's number one, and you are not telling the public. Number two, for there to be meters in Nigeria, the federal government must stop deceiving itself. You must remove that 35% import duty on meters. Something is not available in the country. It's so essential to the economy. And what you have done is that on one hand, you say bring in to those private companies. On the other hand, you are now asking them to pay 35% import duty. Even for the meter manufacturers in Nigeria, those who assemble meters and manufacture here, they still have to buy some components. And I've seen that out of about 9 components that they need to put in a single meter, they are required to pay 15% duty on each of the 9. So it's even cheaper to import than to manufacture here. That's number one. We are not encouraging those manufacturers. Number two, unless and until we bring in massive meters so that people can be metered, people can measure what they consume, we want meters because we know that Nigerians need to know what they consume. And the problem we have is that it's the same government policy. It's as if the custom is not talking to other people, like finance ministry will do something, then the power ministry will do another thing. But if they are talking to each other, they should be able to collaborate and know that we need meters. Let meter come in free of charge, whether you call it waiver or you just make sure no duty on meters. That's one. Then standardize it. Let us have the same set of meters in the whole country so that Uncle Yori can move his meter from Lagos to Abuja. We have all of that. So the issue of meters.
But those were the things that were told us in the beginning we're going to obtain. Those were the things they told us in the beginning we're going to obtain. You get this meter, you go away, anywhere you go with your meter. And anybody coming into where you were before comes with his meter. So
let me give you some figures.
Sure.
On our book, we have 8 million customers. Officially, that's what we see on our books.
Okay.
Out of the 8 million, 4 million people are metered. 4 million people are not metered. Those 4 million people that are metered, there are many of them whose meters are outdated, whose meters are obsolete. The meters have a 10-year lifespan. Now, another shocker. When they say we have only 8 million people, we know that there are not less than 10 million other people that are using electricity free of charge.
Exactly.
Okay? And when you have a country or institution like that, what do we need to do? Because for us as DISCO, we believe in solution. We are not interested in name calling. We are saying, bring in the meters. Let's make those importers of meters that you appointed yourself, MAP, meter asset providers. Don't take any duty from them. Let them bring in the meter. There are meters at the port in Apapa waiting to be cleared. But now you're asking them to pay 35%, so they just left it there.
Now, Chief Oduton,
make it compulsory for everybody to be metered.
Chief, where you got to speaking about meters, and I'm happy that you gave us some sort of figures. I don't know if they're actual figures or you just gave it for example. If you have 8 million on your book, the actual figures, 8 million customers on your book, of which you have said maybe four of them are metered, maybe the others are estimated meters, which is another problem. What do you say? I theorized, because I think I read somewhere things in that regard, that those that are metered, in order for the sums to begin to look like even adding up, which they still are not going to do, are going to be paying for all sorts of people that are not metered. Then there are those that are actually stealing electricities. They know how to bypass the wires, so it doesn't matter, put a meter there. They do their own special electrification, and if we let them have their air conditioner on from morning to night, it will not consume more than, you know, a few kilowatts. So with all of that, I'm sure you well know. But the bottom line of the question I'm trying to put across is that, is it not true that those that are metered will actually now, even if it is still not adequate, be picking up the tab for the rest of the society, and that's how government is going to make it work? And Mr. Zakat just finished his own analogy about when I said that it might well be that we're looking at increasing the tariff and also subsidy, the odious subsidy whole matter, might be one of the ways government is looking to solve this problem.
Well, I don't think the government is interested in subsidy as we speak. Even where is the money to pay subsidy? Let us not deceive ourselves. Now, I think we should be talking about the way forward. Number one, we need to know the landing cost of electricity. How much does it cost per kilowatt hour for it to go into Uncle Yori Folarin's house? Once we establish that, then we also need to make sure that Uncle Yori Folarin is able to measure his consumption, which means make meter compulsory for every household. Stop blaming people who are not in charge of metering.
Okay,
we only work under the people you appointed.
Let me bring in a listener, a viewer. It's the same thing. You're a viewer and a listener. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Uncle Yori, with due respect, sir, when we are talking about electricity, kindly bring in the Minister of Power to talk to us, not Chief Odunton that always comes on air to insult Nigerians, insulting the government, governors, insulting consumers. Please, enough of it. What are we saying? Engineer Zaka said something that there is no change to the status quo in 2 decades. The federal government made a mistake in the agreement he signed with these disco people. Chief Odunton called them innocent people that brought in money into a business. You bring in money into a business in an agreement skewed to, make the people of Nigeria dry so that your pockets can be loaded. And you are calling that same government a government that doesn't know what it is doing. This is a national television. You are insulting the president like that. But that be as it may, Uncle Yori. Where are we going to make up if you are increasing tariffs every now and then where there is no electricity? The government needs to break up. That privatization that was done is faulty.
Okay.
We need to start.
I got to go away, Mr.
afresh.
George. Forgive me, I got to go away to a break now, but thank you very much for calling in. Okay, well, welcome back. It's a feisty topic. It's a topic that concerns every Nigerian. The supply of electricity, you can't do anything without it, either domestically, in your home, or in your business. Chief Sunday Oduton is with us. He speaks for the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, and they have been made the scapegoat, according to some write-ups. And Chief Oduton, you just heard here that there are those who take objection to your derisive language when it comes to some public officials, and they feel that you can make your point without deriding officials. How would you plead?
We started this program. I started by commending Mr. President. I said it clearly here, and I hope Mr. George can watch this program tonight and see that one. Where I commended
you weren't very complimentary to the governors. When you spoke of the governors, you weren't very complimentary.
And when we have a nation where we cannot sincerely and objectively criticize, then what we are saying and what we are doing.
Sir.
The last time I was on this program, sir, 5 people called. The last time I was on this program, 5 people called, including Mr. George, who I know is a friend of the house. Mr. George was the only one who abused me and the discourse. Mr. George, I think the regular callers, you should start by letting us meet with them They tell us their problem. We tell them our problem.
Yes.
Instead of them coming on national TV to talk out of either mischief or innocently, they don't know what's going on.
Okay.
That they also need to be informed.
I'm sure there are those who will say that is an insult again.
I love my president. I voted for my president, and I have a right to also criticize my president, but I would never insult the president or people in government. But aside that,
but you did say you did refer to the governors in an uncomplimentary manner.
I said the governor wanted to grab.
Well,
that's not an insult. That's a statement of fact.
Oh dear.
But wanted to. I'm not saying they want to. I said they wanted to. Mr. President has settled that. Don't let us use that. That's not an issue. Mr. President has graciously settled that fact. They know themselves. We know them. They know us. Okay, Mr. Uncle Yori, in Nigeria, the rich people, the elite, whether you're talking about investors, governors, they know themselves. So please, when they meet, you will not be there, I will not be there. So when they are talking about business, that is their business. But I'm talking about Nigeria and the need for Nigerians to have electricity and the need for Nigerians to be well served. And the need for people to stop blaming disco, one arm of the value chain.
I said so. I said you have been made. I said the discos have sort of become something of the whipping boy, and perhaps reacting to what you will perceive as the injustices of it all. Your language has been quite acerbic. It's like take no prisoners kind of language.
Well, Uncle Yori, you and I come from the same town, and we were brought up to be factual, to be honest, to be sincere. My apology to anybody who is offended, but let us fix Nigeria.
Okay.
Look at Bala, my brother here.
Okay, sir. Let me bring in Mazi Okorafo. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our guest on Skype. Yes. Mr. Yori, honestly, I want to find out from our guest. You showed on your screen there, they said from July. Now, Mr. Yori, as of 2 days ago, I bought vent. That vent supposed to reach at 1 point something units. What did I see? I saw 29.8 units. Yes. So what are they telling us? So the federal government is saying different. Now, my friend want to collect meter. Meter used to be 25 before 39, but now it's 49 point something naira. So what are they saying? Roughly 50,000 naira. So the situation is that the federal government are saying differently, the electricians are saying differently, and they are not even minding the issue of this COVID-19 that affected all the businesses in this country. Even the poor man, the middle class, and the rich man is suffering it, and they just impose this in while Corona was still biting harder in Nigeria. It's not healthy because the electricians does not consider Nigerians' interest. They are just to make money, and disappear at the detriment of Nigeria, which is very, very bad. Where at the end of the day, everybody is going to the same level. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day in Lagos.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mazi Okorafa. Mr. Zaka, would you, because no Nigerian, well, those Nigerians that are trying to work to fix this problem, of course, they'll have a different point of view, knowing the nuts and the bolts. But no Nigerian that is at the receiving end of this, a.k.a. the metered Nigerian, who not only is going to be paying on his own meter, but theoretically will also be paying for those that are not metered because the rates are just going, they're going all over the place. Would you expect the National Assembly as our representatives to come in with a consumer-friendly view on this whole matter? Because where is the money? People are losing jobs. Mazi Okorofo has just talked about COVID-19 and the effect it is having on business and on households and on employment. So, Mr. Bala, what do you expect the National Assembly's stand to be?
Well, they are political leaders. They are those who have the right and powers to come up with new laws that will change the political and economic dynamics of our country. And if they need to step in, well, we will be very happy if they step in. But this is what I have to say. The wealth of a country is not measured by the individual millionaires or billionaires that country has. The wealth of a country is being measured by the amount of people that are living a decent life above a given datum in terms of their health, in terms of their education, in terms of their businesses. Like we said, power is the common denominator that drives the economy of a country. I wouldn't want us to get to a point where the production or unit cost of production of pure water in Nigeria will be higher than in other countries, and we will rely on the import of pure water from another country. I wouldn't want us to get to a point where the unit production cost of a bread will become so expensive that we will have to start relying on importation of bread to be able to feed. The worst thing that will happen is for us to get to a point where importation will continue. If you look at it, even in the oil and gas sector, that was what happened. We couldn't refine, and we got to a point where we are relying on imports, and we can't even survive the subsidy. Then another advice I have for the government, honestly, is government will always remain a government. And Yori, I really appreciate it. The way you approach the issue of government, you separated between the military and now the democratic government. I'm happy we are not talking about political parties now. I also hope that very soon we will not talk about whether it's military or civilians, but we talk about democratic governance.
Okay.
And based on that, what I will say about government is this. Honestly, sometimes our government rush into signing contracts without looking at the legal implications of the terms of contracts. When you say privatization, privatization means something more complicated than we think, especially from that person that is coming in.
Okay.
When you say you want to deregulate, we need to look at those. But at the end of the day, it's very clear that all of us are in it together, and we will proudly be happy, whether from the part of the GENCOs, the DISCOs, the TCN, collectively as Nigeria. Please let us get above the level we are now and see how we can put Nigeria economically on a good pedestal.
Thank you, thank you, Bala. I got to bring in Jide in Maryland now. Thank you very much for holding on, Jide. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yori. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much for calling in. Fine, thank you.
Thank you. Now, I just wanted to say a few things. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind practically is this. Every product has a landed cost, and I think Mr. Otuton had mentioned that.
He was going there, and I'm going to return to the matter.
Good, very good. Now, the cost of power is something that we need to, without sentiment, we need to agree that as a country, we need to pay for that cost of power. I'm almost 50, Uncle Yori, and I can remember the phrase "up NEPA" for virtually all my life. So what it means is that something is missing and something is wrong. So let's remove sentiment. Privatization is supposed to bring in demand and supply. But it doesn't also mean it will fleece the customers.
Indeed.
But the point is this. I lived in Ghana for a few years, and I was paying as much as 500 Ghana cedis per month on Yori, and then dollar was 1-to-1. So what am I saying? Appropriate pricing hasn't happened, and subsequent governments must put their hands together to solve this problem. Enough of what has happened over 20 to 30 years ago.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for calling in. Chief Oduto, I got to end up with you. We're really running into the seconds now. You are going to be talking about the landing cost, you know, the way Bala put it, also the unit cost of electricity. It was supposed to be higher than we were actually paying. What has changed?
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Jide, the last caller, and of course, Bala.
Very briefly, sir, because we're running out of time.
Number one, the best way to understand this is that if a product comes at 89.88 kobo per unit, or call it kilowatt hour, and then you are asking the people below the value chain, distributors, to be selling by law at 31 naira 56 kobo, and there's nobody talking about the shortfall between 31 naira and 80 naira, we will continue to be in the darkness. Because we are deceiving ourselves, nobody is ready to take the bull by the horn. And I like Mr. Jide, the last caller, he has just said it. And thank God he's not a disco man. And I hope Mr. George is listening.
Leave Mr. George alone.
I leave that. Let me quickly go to, I'll give you another example. From what Bala said earlier on.
Yes.
Bala said federal government should be careful about the contract they sign. Mm-hmm. And I will align 100% with him on that. Now, number one, there's a company called Azura Power. I'll use them as an example now. Azura is in Benin City, a Genco. Unlike other Genco, they made Azura, in the contract they signed with them, a special baby, a special Genco. What do I mean? With Azura, there's something they call take or pay. I have a machine that can do maybe 10,000 megawatts. And if your transmission can only take 2 megawatts, that's your business. You'll be paying me for 10,000 megahertz. Even
So are you saying that the inefficiencies extend to even areas of favoritism?
Oh,
because
there's inefficiency. Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, this is as always, Chief. Whenever we come together, there's a lot more to be said than we have the time for. But I want to thank you for the enlightenment that you've put across on this subject, and also to thank you, Engineer Bala Zaka. Thank you also to those who called in, Mr. George, Mr. Jide, and Mazi Okoroa, and those also that actually wanted to but couldn't get in. That's our program today. We'll continue this subject on another day. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. Yori Folam.